second speech at HITB this time. I made one yesterday, which was more serious on telecom security and obviously more popular. Today is just, it's not very serious. I'm just going to talk about the Megaupload story for those who are interested, give you a few insights about the case, and talk about what the plan is for those guys. And since I'm pretty versed in the intricacy of the legal story, you can ask me any questions you want. So everything started a long time ago, in 2005 actually. Hang on. Yep. In 2005, what is going on here? I've got an auto rewind feature. No, it is stable. Okay. No. This isn't me doing that, right? Okay. Right. Technical help, please. Well, anyway, I'll start talking. You probably all heard about Megaupload, which was created in 2005 by a group of friends who actually wanted to answer a very specific problem, is how do I send large files by emails? You know, the internet became popular in the late 90s, and by the early 2000s, people were starting to send big stuff, and it became a serious problem. Oh, I've got a new one. Excellent. So let's see, yeah. At the time, there was no Dropbox, there was no Google Drive, there was no easy way to actually share large files, so it was an instant success. That it basically spawned an entire industry. There was already some other players, like RapidShare in that field, in the so-called cyber locker field. And it was so popular that every time they added new servers and new bandwidth, it was immediately saturated. So there was definitely a huge demand for people to be able to share large files in an easy way, bypassing emails or the old way of uploading files to FTP server and things like that. In 2008, they launched a streaming service, which was one of the first one. Obviously, YouTube was there already, but at the time, YouTube, the quality was poor, and you could only upload small files. Mega Videos tried to be the best possible player and allow you to upload all sorts of files. And then as they carry on with their success, always increasing the bandwidth and the storage. I think by the end, they had something in the region of 80 petabytes of storage and almost 2 terabits of bandwidth. Now, those numbers, they probably don't speak to you, but they are huge. Mega was using more bandwidth than the largest internet exchange in Europe. And of course, few services were launched that maybe the authorities or the copyright mafia didn't like. We were talking to artists to produce them directly on the internet. So Megabox, for example, was an initiative to allow artists to produce directly their music on a website and keep 90% of the revenue, which obviously is different from the business model of the MPA, RIAA, where they basically take most of the profit and limit the distribution rights and all sorts of constraints that are annoying to everybody. So the service was accused of piracy, which obviously we had some users doing that. And obviously all the services on the cloud have similar problems, but for some reason they chose to take down Mega. So they had a kind of Hollywood-style operation in 19 January 2012, simultaneously in something like 7 countries, I think. They arrested people, they seized assets. Don't know if some of you have seen the video of the raid, but in New Zealand they used a special tactics group, the most elite force in the police. They had helicopters and assault weapons and military-style takedown. And the house that was taken down was mostly populated by Filipino nannies and children, so I don't know why they sent a special tactics group to take them down, but anyway. What happened is that the FBI was responsible for conducting this operation, but obviously they've been fed information by the MPAA and their cronies about Megaupload, trying to paint it as the largest provider of piracy or whatever nonsense they could come up with. And they did not only the physical asset seizures, where they seized all the bank accounts and corporate assets, personal assets, but they also seized the domains. I'm sure you've heard about domain seizures. It's basically, you've got a .com. The US has, well, they don't really have jurisdiction over that, but they have technical oversight, so they can seize your domain, and they've done that many, many times, including in times where companies were completely innocent in hosting providers and stuff like that. So the domains were taken down, and the charges were copyright infringement, of course, which is supposed to be protected by the DMCA rules. We'll talk about that. Racketeering, whatever that meant. Money laundering, conspiracy to commit criminal infringement, and witchcraft, and all sorts of charges. And, the funny part is that the racketeering and money laundering charges are very interesting because they actually, they were put there so the FBI could apply what's called the RICO charges, Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization Act, which is a way usually to take down drug dealers. And the US authorities, they knew they couldn't they couldn't extradite the Megaupload executives from New Zealand if they had a civil case. That wasn't enough, you know, the New Zealand would extradite. So they put those charges of money laundering and racketeering. Now, just to give you an example, because for me, I didn't really understand those charges where they came. You know, the finances of Mega were pretty open. There was no secret bank account. There was nothing hidden. So I found them very bizarre. So I looked up the definition. So money laundering, I mean, you all understand what is money laundering, right? You get money from a crime, and then you use it to buy a pack of cigarettes, and that's it. You've committed money laundering. Racketeering is similar. It's basically financing a business with another business. So basically, in the case of Megapay, the company I was running, Megaupload was racketeering because Megaupload was financing Megapay. So that's how they were able to put those charges, which, in my opinion, are completely irrelevant to the case because there was nothing hidden about Megaupload. So what happened during the bust? You know, on that day, there were 4 executives in New Zealand. They were all raided at the .com mention. They were sent to jail. Kim spent about a month in jail. I visited him there a few times. Matthias, Bram, and Finn were freed up after a couple of weeks, I think a week or 2. Then they were assigned residence with the electronic bracelet monitoring, no right to use the internet. So when we visited them, we had to take away our phones and computers, etc. And eventually those restrictions got lifted. So now the only restriction they have is that they cannot leave New Zealand. The other executives that were indicted, one of them is managed to fly back to Germany, where he's safe from US extradition proceedings by law. And the other 2 guys are in Netherlands and Slovakia. But there's also over 200 employees who lost their job on that day, and all the mega assets that were seized. Now, when I say 200 employees lost their job, it's not only that. Not only they lost their job from one day to the next, they also didn't get paid because the authorities seized all the corporate assets, including the bank accounts. So we were in a position, and one day to the next, we had all those employees that we had to fire without pay. We had to cancel all the office leaves, and it turned out to be a real nightmare. And it is without any kind of evidence. We haven't been able to see the evidence that the US government put against Mega. Nothing serious has been put forward. So there was no presumption of innocence. There was no due process. And what they did, basically, they came in and they started to collect all the assets. Started by Kim's car collection, which is, well, he likes to drive, right? He's done the Gumball Rally a couple of times, and he likes his cars, but they've all been taken away, including, I'm not sure if they took the helicopter or not, but anyway. What happened? This is important, right? Because this is, I believe this is actually something that will be remembered as a landmark where the US due process was completely ignored. And this has implication for a country that presents itself as the land of the free, as a beacon of human rights and whatever. There was no due process from the beginning. There's been irregularities in the police paperwork. This has been admitted in court. There's been illegal use of wiretyping to the extent that the Prime Minister in New Zealand had to apologize to Kim.com and to the other citizens of New Zealand because their spy agencies, the GCSB, has illegally conducted wiretapping where their constitution forbid it. The asset seizures were declared unlawful. The US hasn't really ruled yet on that, but they are not able to charge criminally a non-US corporate entity, and they did. So this is kind of strange, right? I don't know if you realize the implication of that, right? It's pretty normal that the US doesn't have jurisdiction, criminal jurisdiction, over non-US entities. Let's try to revert the issue. Imagine that, that US companies become criminally liable because they commit crimes in other countries. For example, how about the US porn industry, which is the largest in the world? You know, they produce pornography all the time, but this is illegal in the Middle East. This is under the blasphemy law, right? So should the Middle East take down all those US companies and sue the US government or the US citizens? You know what I mean, right? There's something about due process that hasn't been followed here. And if the US has jurisdiction over every company in every country in the world, then I think it's a very scary thing. The New Zealand extradition treaties do not hear civil cases, so that's why the extradition will probably never work. They're trying to extradite someone on charges that are civil, but in fact, they won't be extradited because the New Zealand law doesn't allow it. There's been a lot of collusion between the FBI and the MPAAs. There's been a lot of political influence. Chris Dodd, which is the #1 lobbyist for the MPAA, was in Washington talking to Obama and Biden about this. You know, they were, I don't know if you remember, last year they were trying to pass the SOPA and PIPA laws. I think the whole internet was pretty vocal about the opposition to those draconian laws. And we believe that because Obama couldn't pass those laws, but he still needed the Hollywood money for re-election, he basically sold them Megaupload on a platter, kind of a backroom deal, political corruption, cronyism, definitely an abuse of power, violation of international laws. And let's not talk about all the users, you know, millions of users on Megas, and suddenly from one day to the next, they don't have access to their files, which is kind of interesting. You know, the private property concept, which is ruling most democratic countries, has been trampled. You know, companies have basically failed because they couldn't get their files. People as backup of their family pictures, they can't access them. The courts won't free up the data. They basically say you have to sue Mega or sue the hosting provider or whatever. So they're really playing hardball, the US authorities. They're obviously playing delaying tactics. So, you know, their reasoning is that the longer they wait, the more destroyed Megaupload will be, which is logic. You know, you destroy a company, cut their funds. Usually it doesn't work well for them. However, it's not as simple as the US authorities would like you to believe, right? The important thing that, from our point of view, we know we were operating a legal business. You know, there are regulations called the DMCA regulations when you are hosting providers that indemnify you from users' content. The rules of the DMCA that you have to take down offending content when requested. It's called a takedown procedure. And we were following that to the letter. All our takedown requests were processed in less than 24 hours and most of the time much faster through automated processes. You know, there are many companies like Mega. There's probably, I can think of at least 20 cyber lockers. And a lot of them were very aggressive, you know, posting on forums and colluding with pirates and offering rewards, etc. And Mega was trying to be the good citizen in that industry. We canceled the reward program a long time ago. We were improving the DMCA takedown system. And we never cooperated with any of those forum sites that were listing copyrighted content. But the funny part is that there was no conspiracy. They're charging Mega with conspiracy to commit something. But there was no conspiracy. You know, I mean, those guys, they're ex-hackers from, you know, they're really top technical guys that have been around in this industry for a long time, that used to run a pen test company in the 90s. You know, they know about security. Yet, those guys, they didn't encrypt the emails. They use Skype for chat. They use Gmail for their corporate emails. So if they had anything to hide, do you think they would really do it without encryption? I don't think so. They didn't feel they had anything to hide. They were paying lawyers fortunes, millions, to make sure that they were complying with the law and that everything they were doing was legal and within the framework of the DMCA. But of course, like every cloud storage provider, they had users that abused the system and stored files they didn't have the license to, infringing content, etc. It happens to all of them. I mean, you can just use Google search and you will find illegal content on Dropbox, on Google Drive, on SkyDrive, on YouTube, on anything you can think of. But the real truth is that the majority of the users were only conducting legitimate operations on Mega. They were storing their own files. They were, just using it for work, for storage, cloud storage. Mega had a very generous offer, unlimited storage for as long as you can, which I think was a great deal. I know I've got a lot of my backups there. I hope to recover one day. And this is just an example to show, they're accusing Mega of encouraging copyright infringement and not respecting the DMCA rules. The DMCA rules say that when there is an offending content, it should be taken down within 24 hours, right? This is a YouTube search. I've made it in French because French people like to pirate content. There's something about it. If you just put that, which means complete movie, in YouTube, then you will get a list, hundreds of full-length movies. You can see those are the real movie lengths, right? You can see that they can stay for months without being taken down, that they can be viewed by millions. And yet, Google, it's okay. But Mega Video is not okay. I don't understand how that works, personally. Obviously, YouTube is making money from those movies that are hosted because they get the advertising fees and whatnot. The same way Mega was making movies with subscription and ads. And of course, some users are abusing the system. It's pretty clear on YouTube. But on YouTube, you can search. On Mega Videos, there was no search. They really didn't want people to be able to search for copyright infringement. Yet on YouTube, it's okay. All right. There's been a lot of backlash with Mega Story. A lot of people have spoken about it. The EFF and other privacy organizations and some famous people like Steve Wozniak, which is co-founder of Apple, right? And he's right. He said you don't shut down the whole street because somebody is speeding, right? You don't take down an entire business because of a few users that you do not control, right? And those users have made something bad, and you're supposed to make the whole business unlawful. This doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense, especially that there are laws that prevent hosting providers from inspecting the content, right? Those are privacy laws that have been put in place to protect users from the snooping powers of hosting providers. So legally, we cannot inspect the content to check if it's lawful and unlawful, but we have to respect the takedown when they come. And on both fronts, we were really doing the right thing, and yet they took us down, which is weird. So, of course, Mega is fighting that battle on many fronts, in Hong Kong, in New Zealand, in the US, in Germany. It's costing a lot of money, and they've decided that the best defense will be offense, right? So they've decided to restart Mega, because their reasoning is Mega was a legal business. They shut it down, we'll just start it again. And this is going to be quite interesting with the authorities. Because the idea is basically, we're going to relaunch Mega with a few twists, right? It's going to have cryptography, it's going to have a few interesting features, it's going to follow the business model of Dropbox, loosely, file sharing, being able to share between users, etc. So once the new Mega will be live, and it's planned for the end of the year, before the end of the year, then the Department of Justice in the US, they'll have to make a decision. Is the new Mega legal? Then if it is, why is the old Mega illegal? Because it's the same. And if they want to make it illegal, then they'll have to talk to Google and Microsoft and others and tell them, sorry, you have to stop your cloud service because it's illegal. I mean, you cannot have a law that, will tell US companies it's okay, you can do what you want, but other foreign companies cannot. It's kind of weird, right? And I mean, I don't know how much you follow of the political development in the US, but personally, I've always been interested in that topic, and I feel that the last few years, it's really not going in the right direction. You know, it's basically a police state that is increasingly turning against its own citizen with surveillance, with drones, with police, it's turning into a fascist society, fascism light, I call it. So what's the new Mega going to be about, right? I mean, there's a bottom line that what we found the hard way with Mega is that you cannot trust government to safeguard your data. You know, they've taken down our entire data centers and seized all the servers. You know, we had thousands of servers for storage, and we can't access it. So people lost their data until we can. So what we're going to do this time, everything is going to be encrypted. Nothing is going to be hosted in the US. Now, when I asked the Mega guys, why don't you host in the US? Is it because you're scared, like last time? They say, it's not really that. It's more of an economic sanction. We don't want to give them money, but we will offer the service in the United States. What will change is that this time everything will be encrypted. It's going to be as transparent as possible for the end user, because it's usually the biggest problem with encryption, and users don't use it because it's complicated. We're going to make it simple. It's going to be client-side, which means no clear text content will ever hit the wire. The hosting providers won't have no liability. Everything will be encrypted. There's going to be a lot new features compared to the previous one. It's not going to be just upload, download. It's going to be the whole file management and you know, kind of cloud storage management like you see on Dropbox, where you can create shared folders, you can create access control lists, you can do all sorts of things. We're going to offer a set of APIs that basically will allow developers to develop their own application to take advantage of the cloud infrastructure that we're building. With this, we hope that developers will create some very innovative ways to take advantage of the file sharing, crypto, file system operations, etc., and create an ecosystem that just won't be able to be stopped. Like the previous one, we'll have full legal compliance, we'll have DMCA takedown, etc. We're negotiating with a number of players in the industry, and obviously none of them will be based in the US, because this is what caused us so much trouble last time. And the idea is not to encourage piracy. On the contrary, the idea is to create a new model for distribution of media, new models where creators can be rewarded without having to go through those dinosaurs that are taking most of the money. I personally believe that creators should be rewarded for their work. This is how they're going to, you know, make movies and music that we like, and they need to be paid. But the current business model, which was created last century, was there was no internet, there was no easy way to actually share media and shared files, and where distribution meant you had to manufacture every copy of the artwork being distributed. It's definitely not the same landscape now, and that business model needs to evolve. The problem is that the MPA and their drones, they don't want it to evolve. They want to keep it that same way, where they keep control over everything, when they make billions, and this is a status quo they have no interest in changing. Of course not. But you know, the internet is a force to be reckoned with, and then they're not going to be able to prevent all those initiatives. You know, they might put down one company, but they'll never be able to put down all the companies. And they might try to force us to respect that stupid, antiquated model. I mean, I don't know if any of you have traveled and bought DVD in one country, you can't watch it in another. I mean, these kind of stupid, irrational things. It's about time that it changes, right? First, they're going to start to launch Megabox pretty quickly. They were about to launch it at the time of the bust. Megabox is a platform where artists can produce themselves directly. They've already made a lot of partnerships with people who want to produce themselves directly on the web without going through those intermediaries. The idea is to give back 90% of the revenue to the artist and to allow them to profit from the free download model. Because this is the thing, a lot of people, they want free content, they want to just download and listen. And this is what the MPA, RAA, etc., they don't like that, right? But if you can monetize those free downloads and give back that money to the artists, then where is the problem? It's just a new business model that we have created that's going to be, you know, obviously if you want a free download, you're going to have ads that support that financially, and those revenues will be sent back to the artist directly, right? Then we're going to launch, as I said, a set of APIs that you're going to be able to develop apps, you know, on Windows, on Mac, on iPhone and Android, etc. We're going to have all sorts of APIs in every language to be able to enable developers to take advantage of our cloud infrastructure and all the file management and cryptographic functions that go with it. And that's it. This is a bit the vision of Mega. This is a vision of a free internet that we don't want corporate gluttons to control us. We don't want countries to dictate what can be done and not done and say that something is okay for a US company, but it's not okay for somebody else. You know, there has to be some due process. There has to be some freedom on the internet. You know, you should be free from being spied upon. You shouldn't be scared to express an opinion. You know, it's about you having the power. That's what the internet is all about. And we hope that we're playing a part into exposing some of the corruption that has basically crippled that medium, and the truth will come out. So that was it. That was me blabbing a little bit about Mega. So if you have any question. Pardon me?
In the charges you listed, the last one was witchcraft, right? Is there really like charges for witchcraft, and on what basis there was like that's like racketeering? Yes, like you extract money.
Fyodor, it was a joke. Right, but honestly, some of the charges sound very close to, you know, to the Inquisition at the time of the Spanish times in the 1500s or something, you know.
Racketeering is actually, at least like that's what it is in Russia, is you're running a company, I offer you protection service, and I collect money from you. That's what racketeering is in Russia. Like, how does that fit into Megaupload?
Well, I don't know. I've asked the lawyers, and they say that racketeering is when you finance one business with the profit of another illegal business. So I thought it was weird, right? Because if you have a group of companies, you know, and there is one holding companies, and there are several other companies that depend on each other, then it means there's always racketeering. Right? You never do business in a vacuum, right? But as I said, those are charges that just put them there, so it could fall into the RICO category, and that allows them those kind of superpowers where they can ask spy interception, where they can bust people in foreign countries and treat them like drug dealers. This is why they put those charges. They have absolutely no legal reality on the ground.
When the original news report started coming out, there was some talk about them having evidence of Skype chat logs spanning like multiple years.
Well, yeah, it's embarrassing that you see that for the Skype logs, you know, I know a lot of people have been asking themselves, and does it mean that Skype was interceptable all these years? Actually, it's not the case. I mean, nowadays, Skype can be intercepted, right? It's Microsoft, they've put their own things, we know that. But what happened is that some of those chat logs were emailed from one Mega user to another, and that's how they got them. They got them from the mail because, you know, one guy basically packed logs for reference or whatever, and that's how they got them. It wasn't through Skype interception. It doesn't mean that Skype is safe to use now, and I wouldn't recommend it personally, right? You know, just good Java server with OTR, it's a lot better.
The Skype chat is like easily decodable.
Yeah, I can't really.
And B, that like at least some government agencies own like machine for the voice interception.
Yeah, I mean there are many ways to intercept Skype. You don't have to break the cryptography. You basically put it.
And Microsoft patented one.
Yes, yes, indeed. I saw recently that Microsoft had some patent related to Skype interception. But is it a surprise, really? I mean, no. I mean, in my presentation yesterday, I don't know if some of you attended, but I talked about interception systems that the authorities are using to track telecommunication and all that. This is so sophisticated, you have no idea, right? They're intercepting communication on a country level, and they're doing correlation with emails, with chat, with social stuff. This is very advanced interception platform they have now. And for Skype, if they can't break the crypto, they'll put a Trojan on your PC and use that to get your conversations.
Well, Microsoft owns, so they can basically make that, like the, how do you call it in Skype terminology, like main nodes, basically all belong to Microsoft, and on those machines they can just do decoding.
Yeah, I mean, are you using a Windows machine?
In VirtualBox, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise,
So,
how are you going to get malware in your box?
Well, I mean, it's sad when everything you do is spied upon by the government. I mean, Kim.com and his family were spied upon for weeks before the case happens, and this was done illegally. When authorities stopped respecting the laws, that's when you should start being a bit worried, right? Yeah, I mean,
Kids could be pretty evil.
yeah, I mean, they entered the rooms, the nannies' rooms with their assault weapon and said, "Do you have a bomb here?" Imagine the Filipino nannies, what's going on. This was weird.
Environment, I'm mega confident is all of you are that you will win the battle, because the battle actually, as you said, is against the measures and the politics and an approach that's a century ago old.
Yeah, well, of course, there's always an element of doubt because you're dealing with the United States, and as I said, the United States at the moment is not, the beacon of democracy that we used to respect it for, right? It's turned into a fascist society where cronyism, corporatism, corruption is prevalent. I mean, someone doesn't agree with me, please, we can have a long discussion about that, and it's happening. Just document yourself, read the news. It's happening all over the place. There's not a single week without a new video of police brutality in the States, about some new civil rights being trampled. There's some, even the basics from their constitution is being ignored. And
in Russia, atheism is illegal now. Like propaganda of atheism, they actually have a law for this, as of a month ago.
Yeah, well, that's governments for you. But I think we shouldn't give up. I mean, as an internet user, are you saying yeah, well, it's okay, they can read my mail, they can read my chat, they can get my file, that's okay, I've got nothing to fear, I'm an honest citizen. Well, for me, I don't agree with this, right? I don't think it's because you've got nothing to hide that they should be able to read it. I think, your life, it's your life. It's not there to observe and inspect unless there is due process, unless there's probable
it's national security.
Yeah, national security.
It's the same thing that happened with airport security, and all of us, we know it's totally useless. But we accepted it, somehow.
Yeah, but I mean, until when is it okay? I mean, they keep pushing those aggressive laws to spy, to observe, to intercept. When is it too much, right? When do you sort of draw the line and say, this is too much, right? We've got to sort of backtrack, right? This kind of 1984 nightmare, it's really upon us now. It was a joke a few years ago. Now it's really here. It's really happening, right? I'm sure you know that more than most, Raoul, working with all those funny characters you deal with. Yes? Microphone?
What plans do you have to prevent another seizure of all your servers when you restart?
Sorry, you'll have to come in.
Okay, so with this action, you basically lost all your servers, all the hardware.
Everything.
So what plans do you have are you going to use to prevent a thing like that happening again when you restart?
Well, we're not going to host it in the United States. We're going to start by, by working with service providers that have a commitment to, to not being bullied by the US. And there are many of them. And I think there are many people who would like to have a way to store to have a cloud that's secure, but not only secure from the cryptographic point of view, but secure from domain seizure, secure from US interference.
Hosting in China?
Well, yeah. I believe in encryption for that. You encrypt it, and then hopefully they won't be able to compromise your own crypto system. I don't know. I feel we shouldn't let that
The
happen.
thing is, it's about availability, right? So I think in terms of availability, encryption won't help. If someone brings the server down, even if it was encrypted, like the service is not there.
You know, availability, the old Mega, we were storing files in multiple locations, you know, to provide some sort of high availability in case of one data center goes down. Actually, we had one data center that went out of business, and no one ever noticed in Mega because of that redundant architecture, so we'll probably build the same. Because we're going to use cryptography, we've got one issue that we can't use deduplication, which is an issue. We'll need a lot more storage than before. You know, before, when someone uploads one big file, we make a checksum, and the next time it's uploaded, we don't re-upload it. We don't store it twice. It's called deduplication. It's a process that's quite common in the industry. It's also one of the reasons why they didn't understand the Mega business model. They say that when there's a takedown, we don't remove all the files, but how can we do that? You know, if a file is linked to many users, we don't know, maybe one guy has license to that file, the other guy doesn't. We can't remove them all. And so the US, in the indictment, when you read it, it's like a joke, right? They were accusing Kim of hosting pirated songs, but all of the songs that are listed in the indictment, they're actually songs that he bought with his iTunes account. You know, they actually don't have a case, and they tried to go into that discovery process where you can ask the evidence before going to trial to study it, and the US government is refusing to give it. I think it's because they know their case is empty. It's hearsay. It's nothing. They're going to lose, and it's going to be a massive embarrassment for them because Kim is not going to just win. He's going to win and drag them through the mud. He's going to make them pay for what they did. I know him. He's on a mission. And in New Zealand, it's already such a circus, right? I was there last week, and there's a new video that came out yesterday. The Prime Minister is getting so much heat because of that case, because of the lack of due process, because of the laws that they disrespected and all that. And if there is the same media circus in the US that they did in New Zealand, then it's going to be interesting. Obviously, they've delayed the extradition case because they didn't want that to happen before the election. It's quite obvious. So they've pushed the extradition hearing to next March. Kim has volunteered to go there on his own. He's asked the US, yeah, no need for extradition. I'm coming. Just let me have legal expenses, living expenses, and I'm coming. But they refuse that. And they refuse that very simple because they're scared of the media circus that's going to start as soon as he lands there. And you know, there's been some political corruption in the United States related to that case. You know, there's been some influence that has been traded between private organizations like the MPA and public organizations like the Department of Justice. And this doesn't look good for the United States. And we're going to expose that in a very, very visible way. The idea is to make them pay a little bit. So the next time they want to take down someone's business, they'll think twice before doing it. Yeah.
Is there any recourse in terms of financial damages?
Well, obviously, if the bust and the arrest and all that is declared illegal, then we will sue for damages. We'll sue the US government.
Shouldn't the New Zealand government also have part in this, considering that they broke their own laws in order to do this?
Yeah, but Kim is a resident of New Zealand, and he doesn't want to make the situation worse for them. He knows that the Kiwis have been basically bullied by the US, they've been lied to, they've been presented a false picture. You know, the FBI basically forced them to do that operation. And in my opinion, the Kiwis are more victims in that story than they are willful participants, at least most of them. So no, the idea is to make the US government pay because this is where it started and this is where it's going to end. Doesn't it feel great to be able to get it back to them? That's what we're... Well, it's happening. You know, they're stunning the new Mega. They're making alleyways in the US with the legal process. It is happening. You know, they are launching it. It's going to be a big queue to the US when they do, and it's going to make the headlines all over the world because, I mean, how often do you restart a business that you are indicted for? It's going to be a legal, very interesting precedent, right? And Kim is a master at manipulating media and public opinion, and this is going to be entertaining. You just watch that space.
So I think I hear a drone company.
Yeah, well, this is the only solution they have, right? It's a drone interceptor missile on the .com mention. Yeah. when that happens, you just watch your own businesses. Remember, most of you are, well, some of you are working in security, you know. You could be, one day you could be put in the wrong category of, you know, you're not a friend of the US and you should be, you know, busted for that. It's not only about Megaupload, and I really believe it's an important case that will define, you know, what's the internet, what are the freedom on that internet, who controls it, who can regulate it, why do we have those copyright models that are completely unfit to survive on the internet? Those are very important questions, right? And so far, I mean, most of you have been following what happens to the cases like the Pirate Bay or even all the stories at Napster. You know, it always feels like unfinished business. Every time you read about a grandma in the US being busted because she downloaded a song or whatever, or that poor guy that had to pay millions for I don't know how many songs, it's revolting. You know it's wrong. You just know it's wrong. It's not about copyright. It's not about stealing artist work. It's not about that. It's about changing a business model that's antiquated.
That's what they're doing, basically.
But that's the MPA. They are the racketeers. Yeah, indeed. They are the ones. I'm sure most of you have not too much love for them anyways. Okay, so unless there's other questions, I think we are going to wrap it up for today and move on to the auction, where we have a lot of very interesting items for sale. I intend to capture some of them myself. Thank you for listening, and keep following.
Thank you, Emmanuel.